Here we go. Welcome to the first ever edition of the Happy Accidents podcast. I am your host, Dennis Geelen. More about me a little bit in a second, but just normally this podcast is going to be sharing stories of accidental success, people that stumbled across a new idea and went with it, people that met each other in a chance encounter and then ended up becoming very successful business partners, people who just had some fluke timing or some sort of serendipitous moment that led to this crazy success. But that's not today's episode. With this being the first ever edition of the podcast, I just want to kind of set this one up so you know what to expect moving forward. So today I'm just going to talk about why the Happy Accidents podcast, where did this come from, and what can you expect in future episodes. So let me start off by just playing for you the normal intro that you can expect for the podcast moving forward.
Hey there, friends. This is Dennis Geelen, author of the Happy Accidents newsletter and the book, The Accidental Solopreneur. Welcome to another episode of the Happy Accidents podcast, where we dive into true stories of wildly successful people, products, or businesses, all of which can trace their success back to a chance encounter, a serendipitous event, or a fluke invention. In each episode, we unravel the tales of unexpected triumphs and the remarkable journeys that led to their incredible success. I'm on a mission to explore the fascinating world of happy accidents, and I'm thrilled to have you along for the ride. So, why should you tune in? Well, besides the entertainment value of these incredible stories, there's a hidden treasure trove of lessons we can learn from them. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a creative mind, or simply someone who enjoys a good narrative, this podcast is your go-to source for inspiring stories and valuable insights. Get ready for a roller coaster of surprises, a dash of luck, and a sprinkle of wisdom. This is the Happy Accidents podcast, where success meets serendipity. Let's jump into today's adventure.
Okay, welcome back. That was the intro that you're going to get used to hearing as I share these happy accident stories moving forward. But today, why happy accidents? Why this podcast? What's this all about, and what can you expect? Well, this little bit of backstory here. As I said, I'm Dennis Geelen. I call myself the Accidental Solopreneur because I've written a book by the same name. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see the book behind me on my bookshelf. And the reason is because I never fancied myself an entrepreneur at all. I didn't think I ever had an entrepreneurial bone in my body. And then by the age of 43, I was getting quite complacent in life, in my job, of just kind of coasting until one day I was laid off. And that threw me for a loop. I had no idea to expect that. And after the layoff, my first instinct was to jump back in and find another corporate job. I soon decided, no, that wasn't working before, wasn't as safe and comfortable as I thought it was. So fast forward a little bit, with some encouragement from my wife, I decided I was going to start my own management consulting company. Had no idea what I was doing, never started a company before in my life. I didn't know what I was doing. So this was that curse of knowledge. And soon found myself having to learn a ton about being an entrepreneur, branding, marketing, sales, all that kind of stuff, how to attract and retain clients. And I went on this journey of learning about how to do that, and wrote a book called The Zero In Formula. You can see that one behind me again if you're on video. And that kind of took off. Never knew how to write a book or publish a book, but learned as much as I could about writing, editing, publishing, marketing, and things kind of took off. Fast forward again, I was sharing all this on LinkedIn, just sharing my journey. Here's what I'm learning. Here's what I'm doing. And people started to take notice eventually. And I started getting a lot of people saying, hey, I want to do what you're doing. I'm kind of complacent, or I just got laid off, or I want to leave my job and start my own business. And can I learn from you? And I said, well, I don't know if I'm the best person to learn from. I'm not this experienced amazing entrepreneur. I just kind of fell into this and figuring out as I go. And they were kind of like, well, yeah, that's exactly who I want to learn from. Not somebody who's been doing it for 10 years, somebody who's just a few steps ahead of me and can share something more relevant. So I did. I started coaching other solopreneurs, people who wanted to start their own one-person business, coaching, consulting, freelancers, graphic designers, whatever. And then I wrote the book, The Accidental Solopreneur, that kind of tells a story of somebody that goes through this and shares all these lessons. It's a fictional parable. Called it The Accidental Solopreneur, because that's really what I feel, what I am. And that name really started to resonate with people. People were like, oh, I love that title. I love accidental solopreneur. I feel like I'm an accidental solopreneur. And the story really started resonating with a ton of people. Well, that's like my story. I was burnt out. I got laid off. I decided to bet on myself. I love the characters in the book. And oh, I see myself in this character. And I see this person in my life as that character. And so all these people were resonating with the book. And the accidental part of it specifically. And then I started getting all these people going, hey, did you hear about this person that started by accident? Did you hear about this product that was invented by accident? And people started sending me these stories because of the title of my book, The Accidental Solopreneur. I thought, well, there's a pretty interesting parallel there, like accidental success in general, whether you accidentally met somebody, accidentally discovered a new idea, accidentally fell into something and went with it, kind of along the same lines as mine. I was laid off and never planned on being a solopreneur and kind of accidentally fell into this. So I started researching more and more, are there other accidental success stories out there? Turns out there's thousands. In fact, what I found was a lot of success can actually be traced back to a happy accident in some way, shape, or form. And I started sharing some of these stories once a week in a post on LinkedIn. Every Tuesday, I would share a new accidental success story. And those posts were taking off. People loved, anybody loves a good story. And then anytime you have a story with a great twist that, hey, I didn't know that wildly successful person or product or business was actually started by accident, or they didn't mean for it to turn out the way it did. It was actually better than what they planned. That's incredible. So then it was like, oh, light bulb moment. This could be a great concept for a newsletter. People were already looking forward to these happy accident stories once a week on LinkedIn. I've already created this writing cadence where I can write these stories once a week. People are already following them. I'll just announce to people that, hey, if you want to continue to get these stories, they're soon going to be coming in a newsletter form only. So subscribe here. And before the first newsletter even went out, I think I had 150 people subscribed, and it kind of went from there. I've had over 1,400 people subscribe to the newsletter now. I've um, published over 60 editions. I've got a great open rate. I got people sponsoring the newsletter. So, I mean, it's not wildly successful. It's not making me six figures, and I don't have tens and thousands or hundreds of thousands of people subscribed. Um, but it's pretty cool, and I'm enjoying it. And people seem to really like the stories. So I thought, hey, this is great. I'll keep going with it. Um, One of the great byproducts, though, for me has been all the learning. I have to do a ton of research to write these stories. I'm researching people, I'm researching products, companies, partnerships that all can be traced back to some sort of fluke, accidental, serendipity, accident, whatever. And there's tons of learning there. But then to research what they did and how they did it, there was tons of learning. And I share those in the newsletter each week. Here's the learnings from this story. Here's some fun facts that you might not have known as well. But after, maybe a dozen or two dozen stories, I found a pattern that I call the anatomy of a happy accident success story. And they all seem to follow this three-stage act or three-step process. First, act one, stage one, step one, whatever you want to call it, the person wasn't just sitting around hoping to be successful, hoping to get lucky, hoping to have an opportunity. They were what I call setting the stage. Or another term I like to use is they were increasing their luck surface area. They were getting out there, trying new ideas, testing new things, meeting new people, right? They weren't just sitting around, they were being active and they were increasing their luck surface area. They were really expanding all these experiences and trying a bunch of different stuff. You can see this over and over in all these different happy accident stories. It wasn't that somebody was sitting on their couch and all of a sudden had a great idea pop into their head. And next thing you know, they worked hard and they were successful. That's not what happened. They had to set the stage. They had to increase that luck surface area. Now, they had no idea that some sort of serendipitous opportunity was going to come their way. They were hoping for success, obviously, but they didn't know what was going to come their way or when it was going to come their way or how. But eventually, some unintended or unexpected idea or discovery happens upon them. And that's the end of Act One or Step One. Step two is the happy accident, right? They accidentally discover this idea or this product or whatever it is. This opportunity unexpectedly lands in their lap. And obviously, in the newsletter stories and now in the podcast, I'll be diving into that. What were those accidental discoveries? But it doesn't end there. Step three or act three or stage three, the person or the people then have to capitalize on those unexpected opportunities. Now, you'll hear a lot of people say about successful people or entrepreneurs, oh, they got lucky. And yeah, you're going to find out in these stories, there is some luck involved. It's not just hard work. You don't just have to be the smartest person or the hardest working person in the world to be successful. Yes, hard work is a part of it. Yes, you have to be, smart or strategic at times. But those two things on their own are not going to lead to success. There are tons of hardworking people in the world, probably millions, maybe even billions of hardworking people in the world that would not consider themselves successful. There are millions, maybe billions of people in the world who are super smart that wouldn't consider themselves successful. Put those two together, there's probably millions of hardworking, smart people in the world that wouldn't consider themselves successful. Those two things alone are not enough. They have to have a little bit of luck involved, a little bit of timing, some sort of opportunity that comes their way that they weren't expecting. And then, as I said, they have to capitalize on it. So when you hear people say, oh, they got lucky, well, no, they set the stage for that luck. They were getting out there, increasing their luck surface area by meeting people, testing ideas, doing things, working hard. Then that opportunity came their way. But then they also capitalized on it. And there's tons of people out there who, A, don't set the stage or, are out there trying new things, increasing their luck surface area. Well, they're never going to have this happen to them. And then there's people that do that, but they don't recognize these opportunities when they land in their lap. Maybe they're too hyper focused, they're head down, they're just work, 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 work. They're setting the stage, but never recognizing the opportunity. And maybe there's people who actually do set the stage and do have an opportunity land in their lap, but they just don't have what it takes for whatever reason to capitalize on it. Maybe they're too scared. Maybe they feel like, oh, the timing's not right. Or maybe they feel like they're not the right person. I could never do that. So they recognize the opportunity, but they let it go away. The stories that you're going to hear in this podcast and the ones that I write about in the newsletter, they do all three. They set the stage, they recognize this unexpected opportunity, and then they have the courage and the boldness to capitalize on it. Some of the stories are amazing, what these people end up doing. But it takes all three of those. So when you hear people say, oh, they just got lucky, no, the luck was one part of it. There's those other two stages. They had to create that luck and they had to capitalize on that luck as well. So here we go. This is what you're going to hear in the podcast. Like I said, I've written over 60 of these stories in the newsletter, and those are going to continue. In fact, if you prefer, To read these stories, you can always sign up for the newsletter. Just head to my website, www.dennisgeelen.me, and you'll see there where you can subscribe to the newsletter. But if you're like a lot of the people who actually read the newsletter, a ton of them have reached out to me saying, wow, you should actually turn this into a podcast as well, because this would be amazing stories to listen to while I'm driving, while I'm working, while I'm working out, whatever. I like to have a podcast on, and these would make amazing podcast stories. So, just like starting my own business, just like writing a book, just like launching a newsletter, I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know how to host or publish a great podcast, but I'm going to figure it out as I go. And I'm very delighted to have you along for the ride with me. So I hope you enjoy all these stories. Like I said, this is just episode 1 where I'm teeing things up. Next episode, I'll start launching into a different story each week, just like I do in the newsletter. And what you're going to hear at the end here is the outro that you can expect to hear for every podcast episode moving forward. Enjoy. Hey, thanks for tuning into the Happy Accidents podcast. I hope you find these stories as intriguing and insightful as I do. But make sure you don't miss an episode. You can subscribe to my Accidental Solopreneur channel on YouTube and watch these episodes in video form, or subscribe to the Happy Accidents podcast on Apple and Spotify for your listening pleasure. Until next time, stay lucky, my friends.